Hello everyone, it's Scott, and we're back for day 12 of Duskmourn House of Horror spoiler seasons. We only got a few cards today, but certainly ones we want to talk about for their playability in Standard and in Limited. And over the next few days, I will be doing some top 10 lists as well, so stay tuned for those. And remember to like and subscribe to get further content like this throughout Duskmourn House of Horror season and beyond. So let's dive in. So first we've got Roaring Furnace and Steaming Sauna. Roaring Furnace costs 1 and a red mana. You get an enchantment, that's a room. And when you unlock this door, this room deals damage equal to the number of cards in your hand to target creature an opponent controls. So we've got a similar card to this already in Standard that sees a little bit of play in our domain decks. So I think, this could certainly be a card you could sub in for that one, because now you're going to get the room effect, and then you can later unlock Steaming Sauna to get the benefit of that as well. So Steaming Sauna costs 3 and 2 blue mana, and you get again an enchantment that's a room, and you have no maximum hand size. In the beginning of your end step, you get to draw a card. So very powerful abilities on Roaring Furnace and Steaming Sauna. So I think this is definitely going to see Standard play. The question is, what deck's going to want it? And I think the domain deck is our most likely location for this deck if it finds a home in Standard, and we'll have to see where things go from there. Next, we've got Walkin Closet for 2 and a green mana. You get an enchantment, that's a room, and you may play land cards from your graveyard, and you also get Forgotten Cellar for 3 and 2 green mana. Whenever you unlock this door, you may cast spells from your graveyard this turn, and if a card would be put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, exile it instead. So very powerful card here. The ability to play lands from your graveyard is a really strong ability, not only in Standard but in other formats as well. So I think this has got a chance in other formats as well, because we know we have a number of mill style decks in Standard currently. So I think this fits easily into those, because you play this on turn 3, and then any lands you've milled into your graveyard on subsequent turns, you can go ahead and play those. And then later on in the game, when you've got a lot of mana on the board, you can unlock Forgotten Cellar and then use those cards that are in your graveyard to hopefully finish off your opponent. Next, we've got a couple more rooms for the day. We got a lot of rooms today. And the first is going to be Defiling Crypt and Cadaver Lab. So Defiling Crypt is 3 and a black mana. You get again an enchantment, that's a room, and whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 2/2 black horror enchantment creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. So we know we have a deck that I think this is going to be desirable for, because we have that Insidious Roots deck that sees some play in Standard, and this seems to me like a card that fits perfectly into that deck, because as part of that you're removing things from your graveyard naturally just to get the effects of Insidious Roots. So I think this fits in there well from the left side of the card. And then on the right side, we've got Cadaver Lab for a black mana. When you unlock this door, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So 1 mana, in essence, you're bringing it back to your hand, and then you can replay it after that. So I think either side is definitely playable in Standard, and I think, again, that Insidious Roots deck, I think, seems like the place that this makes the most sense. Next, we've got Mouldering Gem and Weight Room. So Mouldering Gem is 2 and a green mana. You get an enchantment, that's a room, and when you unlock this door, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So typical ability, 3 mana, go find a land card. We can do a little bit better than this in Standard. We know we can do this for 1. So I'm not excited about that, but in Limited it might be playable there, because you do want a mana fix, and this is a great way to mana fix. And then on Weight Room side, for 6 and a green mana, when you unlock this door, Manifest Dread, then put 3 +1/+1 counters on that creature. So I think this is a good Limited card, but I don't think it sees play outside of Limited. Next, we've got Violent Urge for a red mana. You get an instant, and target creature gets +1 and gains first strike until end of turn. And if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, that creature gains double strike until end of turn. So this is, I think, potentially a card that is standard playable if in red you can actually activate the Delirium ability. And I think probably in older formats, this is where it's going to be much easier to activate, because you've got things like Mishra's Bauble that you can use to get an artifact into the graveyard, and then you're probably going to play an instant or a sorcery, and then you've got fetch lands. So I think in those older formats, for 1 mana, giving something double strike and +1/+1, and I think is good enough to see play, particularly in the Guerrilla Prowess deck that did very well at the most recent Pro Tour event. So I think this is playable, probably more playable in older formats than currently in Standard. But if there is a way to activate that Delirium ability in Standard consistently, then I think this is a really good card, because for 1 mana, giving something double strike is incredibly cheap, and the +1 on top of it really helps push it over the top. Next, we've got Cracked Skull for 2 and a black mana. You get an enchantment, that's an aura, and you get to enchant creature. And when Cracked Skull enters the battlefield, look at target player's hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. When enchanted creature is dealt damage, destroy it. So I think this is really just a limited card, but that ability to get rid of a card in your opponent's hand in the mid to late game, I think is valuable. So definitely a card, if I got this in limited, I would want to play it. Next, we've got Sheltered by Ghost for 1 and a black Next, we've got Sheltered by Ghost for 1 and a white mana. You get an enchantment, that's an aura. Enchant creature you control. When Sheltered by Ghost enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until Sheltered by Ghost leaves the battlefield. Enchanted creature gives +1 and has lifelink and ward 2. So I think this is a really interesting card for Standard. And the reason I see it as an interesting card is basically you're getting to go ahead and remove one of your opponent's cards from the battlefield, one of their creatures. And the nice thing about this, it says non-land permanent. So it doesn't have to be a creature. It could be a planeswalker, an enchantment, an artifact, whatever their best card is on the field, you get to remove that. And yes, it is on a body, so that's the downside of this. But that body does get +1, it gets lifelink, and does have ward 2. And because of that, I can see this being played in Standard, particularly in our fast decks that want to get prowess triggers, or we just want to buff up our creature just a little bit, give them lifelink, and maybe we put this on a flyer, and that +1 makes it so that you can only use a Go for the Throat or something like that to remove the card from the battlefield. So because of that, I think this is going to see a little bit of Standard play come Duskmourn House of Horror Standard season. Next, we've got Bedhead Beasti for 4 and 2 red mana. You get a creature, that's a beast. It's a 5/6 with menace, and it has mountain cycling for 2. The reason I'm bringing this card up here is really the mountain cycling. In limited, this is a good card to have in your deck. It's a difficult creature for your opponent to deal with in a limited setting, but that mountain cycling has some relevance in other formats as well, because the ability to cycle this, get a land, it's not something that red normally gets the ability to do. So I think that might make it have an outside chance of seeing a little bit of play in a ramp deck in Standard. Next, we have Scorching Dragonfire, which is a reprint for 1 and a red mana. Scorching Dragonfire deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile it instead. And this saw a lot of play when it was in Standard previously, so I would expect that Scorching Dragonfire would find a home in Standard. And the ability to exile things, I think, makes this an even better card in Standard, because it helps to get rid of some of the recursive things that keep coming back. Alright, those are our spoilers for the day. Not much, but we'll be back tomorrow for our last day of Duskmourn House of Horror spoiler season, where we'll get the last, I believe, 11 cards from the set tomorrow. Probably nothing of significance will come out tomorrow, but we'll do a video just to make sure that there isn't anything that's important. And remember that I will be doing, over the next couple of days, I'm going to do some top 10 lists for the best cards from the set in Mythic, Rare, and Uncommon and Common. So thanks for staying to the end of the video. I've left a link for our Duskmourn House of Horror playlist for all of our preview videos, and I've also left a link to yesterday's preview video as well. Thanks for staying to the end of the video, and I will see you in the next one.